Good day, good day, good day. Everybody, are we ready? Are we ready? Are we ready? Good day, everybody. I'm just excited. Um, I'm excited every week about my podcast. As y'all know how excited I am. I just flowed in from the ATL. I rushed home, got myself ready. I didn't care what it took, my dedication, or don't tell me you can't do it, got to go forward. I'm keep pushing, trying to be everything that y'all look for me to be on. Don't tell me you can't do it. Um, since I started this podcast, I've been having some challenges mentally and physically. I don't want y'all to sit up here and look at me like it's never an issue, it's never a problem because I have them like you all. I'm human, and I'm so devoted to this gift and this task that God has before me. With don't tell me you can't do it. So every Sunday evening we used to do it at 6. Now we're doing it at 5. And basically, don't tell me you can't do it. It's changing life, to change direction. It's letting you know the gift that God gave you. If you put your mind and focus in the right direction, and you have faith, effort, and determination, you can reach any goal in life. So the purpose of don't tell me you can't do it, I'm changing minds to change direction. And first of all, I'm using my life as an example to do so. I was touched about a couple of things this week. Like I said, I've been challenged. I want us to keep continuously praying for the people in Ukraine, and we're going to pray for the heart of Putin. My heart go out to people that's suffering for no apparent reason. So let's continue to pray for people that's less fortunate than us. Sometimes we take life for granted, and when you do, you need to go back and look at the lives of the people that's not in the United States that's really having a difficult time right now. So let's often as I say it, let's keep these people up in prayer. To start my podcast, I went to the ATL to take care of some business with my mini-me, my stylist. She graced the platform with celebrities on her styling event. And of course, her mother is her biggest supporter, so I had to fly with her. But when I went to the ATL, I was so touched by a lot of things. And one of the things that taught me so much, I was taking a stroll down in downtown Atlanta, and I met this homeless lady. And as we was driving to the hotel, I saw so many homeless people that touched my heart, that God is just keep reminding me how blessed and fortunate we are, because a lot of us, we complain about things that really we shouldn't be complaining about. I mean, we complain about gas prices. Basically, to me, if you can't pay for gas, stay home. But we complain about the little simplest things, and these people are just like us. They just had bad breaks in life. So I was able to sit and have a conversation with this homeless person, and I asked her, did she know the Lord? And I blessed her heart, and it really just touched me. So I just needed to touch that, because my heart always go out to people that's less fortunate, because I have a saying, we got 1 foot from where they at. We may think that because we are so blessed the way we are, oh, them homeless people and them people like this, they like we better than them. And anybody think that they're a damn lie. None of us are better than nobody, because we may have material possession more than anybody else. We're not. We just got 1 foot from where they got. And most of those people that's homeless, they just had a bad break in life. So I just needed to touch that. I want us to continuously pray for those people that are less fortunate than us. But our today topic is self-esteem part 2. And that's been on me for a long time when I did the segment on self-esteem. A matter of fact, since I did the episode on self-esteem, I had so many people inboxing me about self-esteem. I even had older people, like in their 70s, in their 60s. I had one lady in her 80s didn't know that she will basically knew during life that that's what she was dealing with, because when people are younger, even like myself and other people, people don't deal with self-esteem. It's not a topic you talk about. And during my studies on it, after seeing it, basically if you take 10 women, 8 out of 10 women suffer with self-esteem. And it starts at a very early age. And we do not identify with it because people will say that's not important. But some of the destructions that happen and some of the things that happen around of us really stay into the heart of these people, and that's what make them do some of the acts and basically contribute to some of the devastation in their lives because of self-esteem. And if you really go deep down to the core of it, is something that Miss Foster told me, everything starts with your mind, and even your thinking, it kind of comes from your heart to your mind, and it just materialized. So I wanted to take this segment to talk about self-esteem and how all of us in some way or another have dealt with self-esteem. And I think as children, we deal with that. And when I was coming up, we didn't know a word for it. A lot of the older people probably would say they was being mischievous, or they kind of like acting out, or they misbehaving. But in actuality, all of us have kind of faced it in some way. So I just take myself out of the box, and I'm gonna be naked and real. For many years, I dealt with self-esteem. I didn't really know what it was, but basically self-esteem is, how do you feel about yourself? How do you feel about yourself? And as a young woman, I didn't kind of like feel that I was pretty. I didn't feel like I was worthy to be loved. I didn't feel like I could get the popular boyfriend, or I could do something with my life. I just felt like I was existing because my mama had me. She took care of me, and that's what life was supposed to do. And as I got to be in my mid-teen, I started saying, why do I feel this way? And then as a young woman, I used to ask myself, why do I look a certain way? Because self-esteem has a lot to do with how we feel like we look. Our self-esteem has a lot to do with, are we smart enough? You see some people go to college, then you don't go to college, or you flunk out of college, you feel like you're just not smart enough. Self-esteem comes in so many ways. So for me, I didn't feel like I was pretty enough. I didn't feel like I could really produce in society the way a normal individual would, a young woman. My peers and my other siblings, they was routing and doing other things, when inside that was my hidden secret, as we call it. You didn't discuss it because that just wasn't things that you talk about. And what I learned over the years is a hidden secret, because if you tell somebody, oh, I'm dealing with this, oh, they kind of like in the older days, they kind of set it aside, and it just was not a topic you discussed. Basically, back when I was coming up, all you talked about in your home was food on the table, and they had your life set out. You had to go to school, graduate, go to college, leave college, get married, have children. They basically had your platform because it was traditional. It goes down. They never asked us, what do you want to do? What do you want to become? They just had it mapped up. It was traditional. Like everybody did the same thing because that's how you was taught. And if you kind of came off of that, you was a bit strange, or what people will call abnormal. But they never really sat down and talked to you about the issues you might have been facing. So I learned through my experience, and I came out as an adult to deal with what I was dealing with. My self-esteem was very poor, and it started when I was born with a lazy eye, and they kept calling me names. It starts in so many ways, and how I said I wasn't pretty because I had a deficiency that my siblings laughed at that took my self-esteem. Then I wasn't responsible if my teeth was bucky or wasn't straight as they are now, but you got picked at. So when you picked at as a little child, you come to the point to say, I don't feel good about myself. So as we grow older, if those issues are not dealt with, we carry them from our young adulthood to adulthood to when we get older, and if we never face them, we make decisions based on that. And what I mean is, when I was younger and I was dealing with self-esteem issues, I I went to the church, and the church, learning about God and learning about Jesus and the Savior, it gave me hope. I wasn't, I didn't feel condemned. I didn't feel like nobody thought I was less than perfect or I didn't look the best. And I just didn't have that type of company when I went to church. The company that I had was, oh my God, you in church. And church gave me a sense of acceptance. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, that when you're dealing with self-esteem issues, you just want to be accepted of what you're dealing with, no matter what it is. It could be the way you look, it could be the way your body frame is, it could be your mind. And the reason I say people carry them into adulthood is because when I got married, I married the first man that I met. And that had a lot to do with my self-esteem. Not saying I didn't love the person, but I had to love me first. And I was getting acceptance and advice and everything from everybody else about Lori, instead of Lori making her own decisions about that, because I didn't feel like I was capable to make good decisions, or I wasn't accepted. And basically, you grow up with the mentality that you have to buy friends. You have to always get advice from other people, like your advice is not good enough. So the reason why I say it affects people, because as a child, I dealt with this self-esteem, and then as an adult, it carried over, and it makes you, low self-esteem makes you make decisions based on how you feel. Not on what you could do, it's how you feel. If I don't feel pretty enough, I'm gonna meet a man. I ain't gonna say he don't love me. I was just blessed out the few to meet somebody that loved me really unconditionally. But most of the average women, they meet a man and they accept behavior, and they accept things that's what we will call not normal. What I call not normal, early years of my marriage, I went through domestic violence. I accepted that because my self-esteem told me, well, it ain't him, it's me. And that's never the case. But because your self-esteem is so low, you think so less of yourself, mentally, you think, are you really that problem when you really not that problem? And oh, he hit me, or he did this to me, or he did that to me. So self-esteem is carried out throughout your life, because if you're not loving yourself first and thinking you the best thing since sliced bread, and you not dealing with these issues, it turns over to the decisions we make. A lot of us make decisions based on how we was brought up, our self-esteem, how we look. That's why so many people, the cosmetic surgeries are on the rise. Why? Because our self-esteem. We think a big booty and a curvy shape is what's happening. And if our bodies are not proportionate like that, we got self-esteem. That comes with self-esteem. I've had 6 plastic surgeries. Can't nobody tell me nothing I'm not telling you. So what we do, we go and we try to make this Barbie doll shape, or we try to go get this face done and get this hair done and all that, because we trying to get the image to love us. And we loving us on what we see out of, but it has to start inside. So I've been getting so many inboxes on self-esteem that a lot of people don't know that really starts at a very young age. The reason why you never identify with it, because some people never knew what it was. I didn't either. I just thought that I wasn't cute, I was this, I was that, until I started to go get professional help to identify my self-confidence, and me was very low. And that came back to, not that you didn't have a good mama, not that you didn't have a good daddy, but back then people didn't talk about that. People didn't talk about it to say, Let's have family night. Let's talk about how you feel. Let's talk about what you want. Back in them days, you just did what they say do. You just married the man because he had to get you pregnant, and or he done got you pregnant, and Mama Dim didn't want nobody to know that you was being wed and you was pregnant. It's just basically the traditions and the way people value was coming up that they self-esteem. So they marry a man and they have children all the time. This issue is not dealt with, and they accept things because to me, I feel, and y'all can make the difference with me. I think that people's self-esteem is low when they accept the behavior from anybody that's less than what they're supposed to do. In other words, what I mean, a lot of people they could have a cheating spouse, and they'll say to themselves, well, all men do that. All men are dogs. That's not true. You accepted that because you're not valuing you and your self-esteem is low, so you accept stuff because you feel like that's the best you can do. I was having a conversation with somebody in Atlanta. Your value should never go down for anybody. If your values are at one point, you're supposed to reach my values. My values don't supposed to come down to your standards. But I had to learn that as an adult. So basically not some of the choices, all of the choices we have in life has something to do with our emotion. Our self-esteem is the way we feel about each other. It's our emotion. Our self-esteem is how we value ourselves. How do you value yourself? I devalue myself because I didn't know how to value myself. So I accepted behavior and I did things to justify why I did it. Well, that's my kid's daddy. I want all my kids raised by the same man. I know he doing that, but he don't mean that. We justify. I did it under the sound of my voice. I know a lot of you all do. You have to deal with your inner man because our biggest struggle is dealing with us and ourselves. So I wanted to kind of like touch on self-esteem, and it's the core of our emotions, our self-esteem. If you think more of yourself and your values are great, some people may not deal with great self-esteem. They may not. But according to statistics, 8 to 10 women do that. And they deal with it in a way of some women, they have bad breaks in a relationship, they want to commit suicide, they people killing for love. That's a self-esteem issue. If I don't have you, nobody else can have you. We accept behavior like, okay, well, I know this wrong. I know they didn't do me wrong. And it's not only in marriages and friendships, it's in jobs. We accept that people talk to us any kind of way because we feel like that's what we deserve or we have to accept. And I'm here to tell you that self-esteem is deep. You have to go deep down inside. I was speaking with Sakibia Foster about it because she's a counselor. She's in psychology. She deals with mental health issues or whatever. And she gave me some good pointers about it. What I say to people is you have to, when you get by yourself, you have to talk to you and know what your value and your truth is. And a lot of people, they stem to not wanting to know that self-esteem runs deep. I tell people do your homework. I've done it and I listen to a lot of people, and as I look at my life, I'm in my 50s, my self-esteem was garbage. And it was nothing my mama did, it was nothing my daddy did. It was just growing up, and when you coming up in a household, you have to be mindful how you speak to your children, how you define them. When you tell a kid they ain't gonna be nothing, you just like your daddy, you ain't shit. Your daddy ain't shit, you ain't gonna be shit. No matter how you speak to your kids or your children in a derogatory manner, it affects them. Sometimes kids go to school and they act out in school. Some kids, they even turn around and they bully because everything that comes in the household when they're young stem out to them in elementary school, middle school, and they grow up with all of these emotions inside of them. And you may think that you're not doing any harm to your children and your kids and your siblings. It don't even have to come from your parents. Your siblings can make you have low self-esteem. It could be your siblings, it could be a cousin, it could be an aunt. Even when kids go to school, a teacher play a role, a pastor play a role when kids are coming up and you stirring them up. Their role is played well, their self-esteem could be devalued. And as a young woman today, a lot of people don't know why I'm so strong. And I'm so strong like that because I dealt with self-esteem for 20 years or more on not feeling worthy, not thinking I was pretty, not thinking I was worthy. I went through a lot of marital issues, domestic and physical. I went through a lot of, in my marriage, I went through a lot of domestic and physical issues, verbally and mental. And that tore me down too. You could be with somebody you love and they could tear you down emotionally. And one of the sayings I used to hear a man say, oh, you got kids. Excuse the way I'm gonna put it. Ain't nobody gonna want your ass, you got kids. And that was less far from the truth that a man will not want you because you had kids. Because nowadays, to most of the men, they got kids from prior relationships, just like women, they got prior relationships. But I noticed that men did that because they wanted to value you mentally so you could really feel that way. And half of the women, they really felt that way, that they wasn't going to find nobody, and that was far from the truth. And then another thing that leads women to be devalued is you saying God made a mistake to me. Oh, I had this wrestling with my son, and like I told you, everybody got opinions, that's just life, but they say it's more men to a woman, and that's what statistics say, and men say that because they justify the cheating mode. So to me, when you say it's more men to women, you entitled to believe that, but to me, most men that say that, they either single or they on a cheating level or their values are too much higher, because you basically saying that God done misbalanced the earth. I'm gonna give more men in the world than I got women, so I'm gonna mess up the number. So to me, because I'm so biblically inclined, God say when He joined holy matrimony, a man is for a woman for a man, or whatever partnership you got. You saying that God messed it up, because God didn't mess it up. What is being justified is I want to cheat and I want to be with these many women because I'm desiring the lust of my flesh. I'm not speaking the truth. So it's called justification. So with that, a lot of women is scarred mentally because they're saying to themselves, I've been a good wife, or I've been a good, not only on the women, it's the men too. I've been a good husband, I've been a good wife, why are they doing this? So self-esteem could hit in so many ways, and what self-esteem does, it makes you feel unworthy. It makes you feel that you shouldn't be here. And so most of the time, I find out now, even speaking with Ms. Foster, the suicide rate, a funeral the rate, I see so many people now, they're killing themselves. That goes back to they wasn't captured dealing with their self-esteem and their emotions. All that play a major part on that. And it really hurt me because as being a successor, when I was in my younger years, I contemplated it. So when people say, oh, they was crazy, they committed suicide, no, they ain't crazy. They just was dealing with something that got the best of them instead of them getting the best of the situation, because a lot of times people don't make it available for people to communicate with people on their inner issues. And then back in my days when you went to go counseling, you was crazy. You couldn't go talk to nobody. Now it's so prevalent that even if you can't talk to your parents, you could talk to the neighbor, you could talk to the teacher, you could talk to the pastor. And a lot of people don't want to go to church because sometimes the church supposed to be a covering and a haven for people to even go to the minister. What I find out from talking to so many people, people running away from the church because the church done hurt them, or the church discussing their business or making them feel worse. And we just need to have people in place where these people could come talk to in confidentiality and deal with their emotions. Because if it's never dealt with, it goes on in life, and it make people make decisions in situations worse than what it's supposed to be, because they may not want to do it that way, but because their emotions are leading them that way. So we need to kind of go back to the core. Like for me, I went back to what broke me. I went back to what took my self-esteem. I went back to what made me feel unpretty, what made me feel less than. I went back to find out where did my turn take place. And only thing I came up with is all the places and all the things that broke me, but I never went to a place that it was mended. So I just kept living, dealing with, born with a cross eye, nice body, but didn't feel pretty. Didn't feel like my complexion was what it's supposed to be. Didn't feel like daddy loved me. Didn't feel like mama loved me. Sisters them loved me, but they was picking at me. Didn't feel like when I went to school I was smart enough to be in the A class. All of these deficiencies that I had was never dealt with, and that's when people carry them for life. And when people carry them and it's not dealt with, some people self-destruct. When I say self-destruct, it comes in so many ways. When I say self-destruct, they get in bad relationships, because all they want somebody to do is say, I love you. You're so pretty. You can do it. I know you did it wrong that time, but come on, you can do it. You can do it. You don't have that bad marriage, but that's okay. That's okay. You could do it. You're pretty. You didn't make it in school. School ain't for everybody. Take up that trade. Do what you like to do. You have to get into the heart of the individual. And so happily it didn't happen for me that way. I just think that God just catch me, and he surrounded me around positive people, and people told me that I was somebody, because basically that's what we need to hear. And it ruins people. And then when people don't go to get help from family, church, pastor, friends, or whatever, they get in a corner, and then when they go through things, and as soon as something happens, the first thing people say, I wish I known they was dealing with that. If you pay enough to people conversations, when people are reaching out for help, a lot of people can be saved if you just get out of your egotistical way and listen to people. A lot is told through a conversation. I just listen to people sometime, and I could tell you 99% where they at, because you gotta listen. Now, I'm not good as far as psychology-wise, but I'm good as far as success and business and dreams and goals. I could listen to you, and I could tell you right then and there. I talked to one of my friends, and I listened to her talk, and she made a statement. She's an older woman. She said, I've been on my job for 35 years, and I have nothing to show for it. Why you don't have nothing to show for it? Because that's what I was taught. You work and you retire and this and that or whatever. So me being the person I am, I reach back, what makes you happy? Buying a house, buying a car, and all of that, that's material stuff. What really makes you happy? So sometimes we got to go in the soul of people and see what people are dealing with, because when it's dark at night and you home alone, do you know when you by yourself, you're your biggest enemy, you're your biggest critic, but you got to be able to accept and make changes. So I kind of listen to my children, and they could call me on the phone and I could hear them. But because I dealt with self-esteem so much, I often call my kids, what's going on? And when they start talking, I could tell from my daughter, just talking to her, you pretty, you can do this. Well, my daughter called me last week and said, Mom, I need to go to this convention. Did I feel like doing that? No, I didn't. But because that's something she wanted to do, and her self-esteem is to put herself out there, I'm right behind you. I'm going to support you as long as you're doing something right. Even if I may not agree with it, I'm going to support you. My oldest son, he got a dipper. He's a jack of all trades. I'm going to support you. But no matter how many times he failed, I'm never going to say to him, you failed, you ain't shit. You're going to never hear me say that. Just keep trying. Keep trying. Keep trying, and you'll get it. I told my middle boy that, Mom, I'm doing this music. By 30, I'm going to be in the made it. I told him one day, don't never put God on a time frame. You are going to make it. But how you going to make it? Just keep grinding. Keep grinding. I'm never going to say you ain't going to do that because self-esteem is in the way, emotions in the way. And sometimes when our children come to us, they just want us to listen sometimes and say something positive because that affects them because I know how I felt. So as an adult, a lot of times back in the day, we don't speak to our kids and we don't say nothing. I had an old lady, and I never forget this story, and I'm so naked to tell y'all this because I'm just an open book. A lady said to me, I wasn't even a funeral director then, I was a hairdresser. And my daughter's 29 years old, so this happened about maybe about 25 years ago. I was diagnosed with endometrium cancer. I was in my 30s. I never forget it. The doctor suggests right away that I have a total hysterectomy. I couldn't have no more kids. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that. But all I thought was saving my life. I wasn't even in the funeral business then, but I was thinking about saving my life. I had 3 kids. I just had my daughter. I think my daughter wasn't even 6 months old. With me doing that, I had a hysterectomy. I had a partial. Then I came back and they did a complete because they wanted to make sure I didn't have anything that could come back and take my life. I was doing hair in a salon. I won't mention the lady's name. I don't know if the lady's still living today. I came to work and I was limping, and I had a cane and limping, and she told me, what happened to you? So I was so free because, I talk to people. So I told her what happened to me, and she said to me, you told your husband you had a hysterectomy? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, girl, I wouldn't have never told my husband that, girl, he would have left. I said, what he leaving for? She said, because back then when women had hysterectomy, they thought you was less than a woman because you had a hysterectomy. So me being young and naive, I didn't let that savor in my thoughts. I was like, really? They made it seem as if though you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, you wasn't a whole person. Make a story. I went to my doctor one day, and he was a Spanish guy, and he said to me, you're a young woman. He say, that's a myth. He say, anybody that's educated enough, when a man and a woman join in intercourse, he's not to your uterus, he's in the vaginal walls of the vagina. So he say, if a man goes all the way to the uterus, you better run with gasoline drawers on. He say the ignorance of the mind. And because that's what we were taught. Now this lady, she probably in her 70s, early 80s, she gave me misgiven information that I went and I had to speak to a medical physician. Had I believed that, that could have ruined my marriage for the rest of my life, because not what medical science did to save my life. It would have ruined my life because I would have thought that I was less than because of what she planted inside of me. And that's what I say to people. Emotions plays a big part in our decision making. Like they always say the mind is a terrible thing to waste, but I say the heart is, because what we put in our heart is filtered in the mind and it comes out, and our actions, ways, our living, and our being. It's always that way. What's in your heart going in your mind, and it filters out in what's the being. So today I got Miss Foster here with me. She is a mental health advocate, and she's a survivor also. So when I always tell people, and I don't say this to be arrogantly, and until you done been through something or what you dealing with, you can't tell me nothing. That's like A person can't come and tell me about low self-esteem if they ain't got none. You can't tell me about mental health issues unless you know. But I don't care how much schooling you got, how many degrees you got. You got to live it to be able to touch the life of the person and tell them that. So I got Miss Foster here. She dealt with that. I went to a seminar one day on domestic violence, and I'm sitting to the back of the room, and the lady that was hosting it, I walked up to her. I say, I can relate to everything you're saying. I've been there, done that, did that. The lady eyes went like this. I always tell people, if you're going to be a help to somebody, don't be a help to somebody on what you think you know. Be a help to somebody what you do know. And I had brought Miss Foster here because I wanted her to kind of like touch on some of the things emotionally that we deal with and be able to kind of like elaborate, because she shared some things with me on mental health. And I think a lot of times if self-esteem is not dealt with, you're going to go through some mental health issues. So I put on my podcast today to join in, and I want you to talk a little bit about that. Charlie, tell your daddy something. Okay.
So I heard you mention one thing that I wanted to talk on. You mentioned self-esteem and value, about whether or not if you don't have self-esteem, if you don't have values. So here's the thing: I never really believed I had self-esteem issues, right? I mean, I had things I did not per se like, that I was picked on. I heard you mention about being picked on. So I was picked on. I was called big head. I was called tar baby. You know, just little things that people say when you're growing up that kind of sticks with you that you don't like. But it's very important too that when you mention about parents, my grandmother was very good though at always telling me I was a pretty black girl. Even though I always asked her, why do I have to be a pretty black girl? Why can't I just be a pretty girl?
Mm-hmm.
So what happened is, I'm not sure it was a matter of, because going back to the decisions we make, you also mentioned being in relationships and accepting too many things that are not right. That's values and self-esteem. See, I valued being a wife more than I valued being Zakia. So my self-esteem was locked up into my titles. You understand? It was locked up into all these titles that we as women gather together. You mentioned a couple other things. We're wife, mother, all of this stuff. So a lot of women, their self-esteem is locked up into these titles. I gotta be the best mama in the world. I gotta be the best wife in the world. I gotta be the best this and I gotta be the best that. Problem with that is, what happens when those titles are gone? What happens when the divorce comes? What happens when the child grows up and is now an adult and not joined to your hip? What happens when these titles that you have tied your self-esteem into are no longer there? That's when you realize that a lot of your worth has been put into things.
But don't you think the titles, we hunger for the titles to suppress or cover up the self-esteem because we didn't know. Right. We like me, I chased it success. I chased it being the best food of the director, being the best. Right. But no matter how many accolades you got, no matter how many degrees you got and all of this, that problem of feeling worthy was still there. You just covered it up. You band-aided it. You band-aided with degrees. You band-aided with your marriage. I band-aided, because we women, we wear hats very well. To me, we take the titles and we suppress. That's why we go after all these things, because we don't want to deal with, or we don't know. With me, I didn't know how to deal with self-esteem. So I went after things that made people look at me differently so I could suppress what was coming at me like a monster when nobody saw me. Absolutely. It was like self-esteem is a monster. Absolutely. And it's like you really don't see it if you're massing it.
Right.
So to me, I went to school, I went to the military, came home, went to college, came home, opened up a beauty salon, opened up the funeral home number 1, 2, 3. Everybody said, "Oh damn, Lori Hadley Davis, she the shit."
Right.
But in the inside, when all the cameras, the clothes off, everything is dark, I'm dealing with, do I love Lori? And is Lori worthy? So I think when you touched on that, Miss Foster, people take the accolades and all the glitz and glamour and they cover it up. It's just like, you cover it, you massing it. It's just like sin. You're covering it up. You're not exposing it or dealing with it to become a better you. That's like most people with sin. They doing it, but they covering it up because they don't want people to know that there's a deficiency. That's just like a person that's on drugs.
Right.
They hide out and go get high. If you don't deal with that internally, it could destroy you.
Right. No, it absolutely does. And what happens is like you said, you made a statement, I can't think of what it was, but it just creeps in you until you kind of explode in some kind of way. Whether, because the other thing is, you may not have it, like me, I had a whole breakdown. But for some people, it's addiction. You understand?
Gambling, drugs,
It's
promiscuous.
right. It comes in some
Form of fashion.
It shows up in your life. And so that's why one of the things that you have to do is not determine your worth. Because that was the other thing you saying, knowing your worth and knowing your value. One of the things I hate, and it's just me, I hate when women and this is just one of those things society does. Women have placed their worth based on how many people they have sex with. I really don't like that.
Or base themselves on, tell me if you agree with this, because I could get in people about this. Oh, I took him from her.
Right.
You did? You ain't take him from her. He gonna do you like my grandmama say, the same way he did this one. Right. Nobody, I tell my husband this all the time. Nobody takes a man, a woman don't take a man from another woman. He wanted to do that. He give you excuses. Oh, she ain't doing this at home. She ain't doing this. Our worst thing is women at each other. I've had women that come up to me in my profession and basically don't even know me from a can of paint. They probably just know the name because it's on at the funeral home. They don't even know me, and they like, you say take somebody, man, what you took? He was never yours. Right. He was never yours in the first place. People go where they want to go. People do what they want to do. That's why divorce rates are. Just leave because you say you left. Or you got with him after her and you were sleeping with him while she was with him. But that's because you devalue yourself. Because anytime you sleep with any man or any woman and she's in a relationship, you devalue yourself. Because to me, if I got to sleep with you and degrade myself, my values are here. I tell my husband all the time, and I guess because I didn't have self-esteem when I was younger, now I'm so cocky too, it's just ridiculous. I tell my husband all the time, if you ever go out there and get for somebody, just make sure yours be so over my head. Because didn't nobody take you, you just left. And we kind of devalue ourselves, and men makes us devalue ourselves. They play us at each other. Right. They make us think that, oh, she doing more than that one, or she doing this. Everything is good in the beginning. If you meet a man and you sexing him every day, it's gonna look better from what the wife doing. I've been married 36 years. A woman could come along and stand on top of her head. Oh, you did it better than me? No, you didn't. You ain't do it better than me. It just new. And you just it just new. And new shit get old. New stuff get old. So it's the mind. So can't no man come to me incorrect like that. My values are so high now. I guess I didn't have it when I was younger. I just made up for it. So you couldn't come to me with that line. When I meet women or young people and they say, child, he took my husband. I'm like, took? Who took? All of us belong to one God. one God. How do you take something that was never yours? And if he left, that's because that's what he wanted to do. We don't take it. And you don't take people with sexual objects or material things. That's because that's what they wanted. We mask it. I tell people all the time, I came on my podcast and I've been so mentally drained, and I come before this camera and I can master you. You don't know. You don't know. Because all you know is that Lori is a motivational speaker, Lori's successful, Lori this. But did I get here like that? In order for me to be where I'm at, I had some valleys and some depths to climb. So when Ms. Foster say that her nervous breakdown, basically, when people have nervous breakdown, they couldn't handle what they were dealing with. And the breakdown gets so severe, they don't have an open door. And why they don't have an open door? Because it's ways society defines us. Like she said, why I gotta be a black girl? Why I couldn't just be a pretty girl? And who defines pretty? Who defines beauty? Who defines that? I always tell people, who said what you said is correct? Who said that? You said it? So your truth is your truth, but who left you with that? So we need to get more into that. And because she's an advocate more mental health, she suffered it, she tell me some things, and some of the things she even tell me, I could have been in that situation. Because I went through a lot of domestic violence, drug abuse. I went through so much in my marriage, but I overcame it. But some people don't overcome it like me. And I overcame it because my faith and belief in God. That's all I had. That's all I believed in. But some people don't, and they have a nervous breakdown. Like when I met the lady in Atlanta and she was homeless, this lady used to be a lawyer. She was smarter than me and half of y'all.
But you know what? I got to stop you for 1 second. 1 second. Something you said. You said I overcame it because of my faith and trust in God. Some people don't have it. I really want to stop you there because that's a common thing that people say. And I gotta tell you, I don't think nobody had more faith or more trust in God than I did. What people don't understand about breakdowns is it has nothing to do with faith or trust and everything to do about science. You get exhausted. There's a level of exhaustion.
But where do you turn to? The reason I say, Ms. Foster, mine was my faith in God because I was brought up in a very domesticated home. Then I married a man and went to the same thing. So when you said my faith, I'm just speaking. I can't speak for nobody else.
Right.
I guess God heard a sinner's prayer. I understand because you got some people that don't go to church. You got some people that don't go to church.
The reason I stopped there is because my thing is, as an advocate, I never want people who are suffering anything to feel like their faith isn't enough. Because faith is what helps you in that moment. So here's why I say that. My faith, even though I broke, my faith took me to the right therapist. My faith didn't let me stay there. My faith took me through the journey.
Okay, but that's what faith is all about. What you did was, I always speak that on my podcast. Faith is an effort, okay? I'm using me.
Right.
I didn't have nobody because I was brought up in a home where my family didn't discuss that. They laughed, kikied, and all that. So in the beginning, I went to church and I felt comfort there. Right. So when you're hurting, where do you go? Where you find comfort. Now, I would find comfort when I was on my knees talking to God because he wasn't laughing and belittling me and putting me down. So I only could speak that way because when I went to church is when I find comfort. But you got to remember now, that was 30-something years ago. Right. I wouldn't dare go to nobody's church with that today because people take, yeah, people with church today is, I always say that. My mother-in-law used to call it the motherboard. Right. And the motherboard, every young woman came through the church door, they gravitate and they taught them how to be ladies.
At the time, church was a part of my problem.
Okay, so guess what? It wasn't the church because to me, people think the church is the building. Right. The church is your heart. Right. So when I say I went to the church, I went because that was the way I found happiness. Listening to the music, right. Thanking God. It's not the church that brought me any deliverance.
identity.
The church didn't bring me no deliverance.
Right.
It's holding on to the faith that I had, to pray to the super being to say, help me to get out of this. Help me to deal with this. So I'm not saying, because some people, I'm going to be honest with you, the church, some of the churches got people not believing. Because people see so much stuff in the church. Why I'm going to believe in this God? Why I'm going to believe this? Why I'm going to believe that? Because some people are not living by example.
Right.
They not living what they preaching.
For me, it ain't even about people living how they need to live. And I think we kind of went off a little bit, but this needs to be said. I think it's more about loving how you need to love. Like I don't care how you live, how you love. Like if you live, I don't have nothing. I don't have a hell or heaven to put nobody in. Of how you living, but how you loving. Like how are you loving the person that broke down? How are you loving the person that needed help? How are you loving the person that needed a friend? How are you loving the person that you don't see that for a month or so and you heard they going through a divorce? How are you loving that person? You talking about them? You trying to get back? You trying to help them, or you just threw them to the mud? That's my issue.
Yeah, but the reason I say that, well, most of the time, because according to statistics, 8 to 10 women suffer with self-esteem.
Right.
The reason I go to the church, and I went there to the church, if you go to the church, 80% of the people in church are women.
Right.
So if you take all the women out the building,
right.
You ain't got nobody in the building. So if you go into the church and you're hurting, you should be able to go to that building, what you call a church,
right.
and be able to get counseling and help. And people not giving counseling for mental health. Why do you think the little boy went and blowed up Stone and Douglas? That's mental issue. That's self-esteem issue. It wasn't money because his mama had already left him. Look at the countless people that I buried for suicidal because of love, not feeling loved and appreciated. When people don't feel love, they feel useless.
Absolutely.
They don't. If you don't feel love, you feel useless. You ask yourself, what is your being? So that all stem down in your self-esteem. What is your value to yourself? Do you want value from man or you want it from yourself?
But
With me,
we gotta really learn how to love ourselves. Like there are times where,
exactly.
honestly, I didn't have nobody, and I want to say they actually did me a favor because it taught me how to love myself. It taught me how to talk to myself. It taught me how to encourage myself. It showed me that
But when you was younger and you talked to yourself, be honest, what people say? You were crazy. But you know what my grandma used to say? Talk to yourself.
That's the best person to talk to.
Right, but don't answer. Don't answer yourself, but talk to yourself. Okay, so what I'm saying with self-esteem issue is we need to capture it, Ms. Foster, at a young age in our home. You in the school system. You in the school system. Okay, listen. Look what's happening in the school system. Our school system is being overrun, bullying, carrying guns for school. When do you got to carry a gun to school to defend yourself? Because and 90% of the people that's going to school with these guns, these young people, and the bullying and everything, that starts with your self-esteem.
So here's the triple effect, right? We're talking about the school system. But here's the issue. A lot of the parents dealing with self-esteem. So they got their kids. I deal with kids every day. We have all kind of pages. We got pages where where people fall asleep. We got pages where people can't. These some IG pages that they make in high school. This IG page is for all the kids that fall asleep in class. This IG page is for all the people who come to school bummy. This IG page is for all the people that's ugly. And people are creating these like anonymous pages where you got kids that's scared that they're going to end up on these pages. They're scared to actually do things and just normal things, everyday things.
Well, social media have self-destruct.
You have adults who won't deal with their self-esteem, so they can't come and deal with their kids.
No, but I got to beg you the difference. Some of us older adults, I got to come to the defense.
Some are.
Okay, listen. 90, I'm saying in my era. I'm not talking about today, because it's so much means to help you with self-esteem these days. But I'm gonna say everybody from 60 or 70 on that's in age-wise, it's not that they didn't deal with self-esteem. They didn't know how.
I absolutely agree.
And guess what? They didn't have the outlets. They didn't have the counseling. And guess what? back then and there, everybody raised one child. So if you talked about you were dealing with stuff, you could have told, just say for instance, you had sex with a little boy when you was younger. Your neighbor gonna go tell your mama. It was no confidentiality that you could have went to folks. So a lot of us cannot teach our kids because we dealt with it ourselves. Okay, but how do you unroot that? Because my mama didn't teach me nothing about self-esteem. One, she probably didn't catch it that I was dealing with that, and even if she did caught it, she didn't know how to deal with it. So that's like anything in life. It's not self-esteem, it's anything in life. How are you going to teach somebody to do better with anything in life if you ain't never dealt with it yourself?
So that's
You telling your kid to be a better person, but if you know it or not, they always say, don't repeat now, come out my house. But 90% of the kids lead by example. My little grandson went to school the other day, and he used a bad word. My daughter came home and told me, oh, Mama, used a bad word. I said, oops, he heard me use a bad word. So I had to sit down and talk to him. Grandmama say damn and shit and this and that. She shouldn't say that, but it shouldn't be say. So I had to teach them some of the verbiage that grown people use. That's grown people language. You shouldn't use it. What I'm trying to say, if you never taught to tell your kids better, and some of these mothers don't want the kids to know that they even dealt with these issues. Some of these kids, these parents being their parents, they being their kids' friend. I'm not your damn friend. I'm your mama. And it's okay that I'm your best friend where you could talk to me, but some of these parents don't have guidance themselves. So as being in your field, how do we deal with families that first don't want to discuss it, don't want to talk about it? Our kids are our future. I got 3 kids. I talk to my kids naked, raw, and straight. And you know what they say to me? Darren, Mama, you said it like that, I'm going to give it to you the street way. Because the street ain't going to have no pity on it. Then I'm going to give it to you the biblical way, and then I'm going to give it to you the way that a mother gives love. You going to have it all, because at the end of the day, that world out there don't care nothing about you. That's why so many people, I see so many suicide of young people. Why are you killing yourself? Because what you're dealing with is so overwhelming, it has taken you, and you feel like there's no way out. We got to come up and be advocate. I lay down my life to anybody want to come talk to me, and I could share. I pray that God will put me in a position where I could be an advocate to people on self-esteem.
You're answering your question.
Yeah.
You're literally answering your
To
question.
me, I can't tell you no about mental health, but self-esteem. Okay, but I'm saying self-esteem. I could tell you why I can't, and I'm just naked with it. I'm just like, these are things that we need to do. And guess what? If you go back to the root of all of these things that's happening in the world with our teenagers in school, it root back to the way they came up, they self-esteem, and all 90% of my decisions came in life because of how I felt about myself. My value was so less. Now, I was having a business meeting the other day, and we even brought you up, Miss Foster. I say, my values are here. They said, well, how about bringing them down? I said, who? My values gonna stay here. You gonna catch up with me. If you can't catch up with me, like my father-in-law used to say, if you can't handle the big dogs, get off the porch. I'm not bringing my values down. But the younger Lori would have said, okay, well, whatever you wanted like that. No, we got to start planning. Our school systems are changed. The way our children grow up are changed. The way they react to their peers. All the people, the church makes up the people. The people make up the church. So the reason why things are so chaotic and all over the place, look what we bring it up.
But here's the thing, and this is what I want to say to any parents that have teenagers. Sit down and talk to your kids, not act. If anybody ever asked me this question, where do we start? A conversation. Talk to your children, not at your children.
Amen.
And once you start talking to your children, not at your children, you may learn something. And don't be offended when your kids are honest with you.
You just taking that. And I even talked to my daughter. My daughter was in college, her last year in college. She got pregnant with her son, and she wound up saying, okay, I'm gonna go to college after I'm done. Oh, you so motherfucking dumb, you so stupid. What I said, baby, You could, as long as God blow breath into you, you always got a chance to try again. I know this segment, I pray that it was enlightening to most. Um, I'm gonna just tell you like this. My life is a living example. Don't tell me you can't do it. I like for us to, I like that God would just use me to be an advocate to people with self-esteem and even being married and going through marital issues. I just want us, not only women, but men too, don't devalue yourself because of what people define you to be. Define yourself to be, I'm all that. You know what somebody say to me? Oh, you arrogant. I say, I'm not arrogant. You don't even know me. I'm confident. You don't know my story. So it could be likely that you will say, how am I arrogant? How am I cocky? I'm confident. I'm confident that where I came from, I learned from that. And I pray that, like Miss Foster, she upcoming, she got so many things she got going on. It's driving me crazy, but she got Girls Global Talk. It was a women's organization that women, we go and we need to talk. We need to talk at each other and stop being jealous of one another, hold each other, and support each other. Trust me, trust me, I tell people all the time, that's one thing I don't suffer from is jealousy. Now I may suffer, like my son always tell me, Mama, you say the right stuff, you're delivering. But I say my stuff in a way that is naked and uncut. Because I feel like when I dress it up, you not gonna understand it. You just not. And us as women, what I find out, we willing to cut each other and don't know what we've been through. So I try to use my podcast every single week, telling y'all about my success stories. I got all these success stories, but all of my success stories came with a struggle. So God has taken my life and redirected me in a way that I could help somebody. So I pray today, this segment, I jumped on it again about self-esteem because I had so many people. I even had an older lady that I admire so much call me up and said, thank you. I ain't even look at it that way because it ain't one way you look at stuff. Looking at it come from all different angles. But you know what really made me feel good when she said, I did not know that I was suffering with that, but now I get it. It's old people suffer with it, young people suffer with it, everybody suffer with it. We just gotta find a positive way to deal with it. And I think everything starts when we're young. I thank y'all for joining in again today on Don't Tell Me. The last time I did this segment, I was really down and drowning because I was going through the process of deliverance. I made my first podcast on self-esteem, and the reason why I was dragged that day, I was down, because when you come before people every day, you got to be naked, and you can't be naked until you're delivered. And when I talk to y'all about these things in my life, I'm delivered. I don't really care what you say, what you think, what you be. God just told me to deliver the message and he'll take it from there. But I thank God for all of y'all that tune in and don't tell me you can't do it. Don't tell me you can't improve your self-esteem. Don't tell me you can't overcome these mental issues. Don't tell me you ain't never been to the point you done been down to the ground and want to give. See, it's too many of us saying now, oh, that ain't me. I'm all at it. Everybody done dealt with some issue that could have drowned them. You were just saved by grace. That's all of us. I don't care who you are. All of us got hidden issues. If we didn't deal with them, they still inside of us, and we raging them, and we not dealing with them. I'm just naked right now. I deal with my issues. Because one thing about them, they ain't going to beat me. Because I'm going to tell you before they beat me. I'm just going to deal with them. So thank y'all so much. I thank y'all for tuning in. I thank Miss Foster. She usually help on my podcast every week. She joined in on my podcast today because she explained to me some of her mental things, and she taught me a lot. And guess what? Looking at her, I would have never known that if she didn't tell me that. See, when people dressed up, we dress it up. You don't never know what people are doing with, but when they take all that layer of hurt and pain and defeat and what they're going through, and they tell you that sometimes I'm out with, I know people saying that to me. I got people inbox say, you went through that? Was I exempt? I went through a whole lot of stuff, and through this podcast, you're going to learn everything about my life because God let me go through it so I could help somebody. Y'all be blessed. Thank y'all again for tuning in. If the Lord say the same, I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Tag, sharing life. If you see anybody that's going through something as upcoming things, I'm going to try to be a living example on how I can mentor some young people that look up to me. Because your life is nothing if you can't help nobody out of a situation that you've been through. So thanks again for tuning in. God bless you all. And remember, let's keep praying for the people that's less fortunate than us. And remember, don't tell me you can't do it.